us about a trip that she recently made to Africa, and she'll tell you some details about it. So, Linda, oh, and I see you're wearing some of the garb.
Yes.
You're going to tell us about that.
Well, some of you may remember last year, before we left to go back to Michigan, that I came up and mentioned to you, talked to you a little bit about this family in Ghana, West Africa, that we were familiar with. And for those of you who weren't here, I'll just briefly tell you, a young boy sent a letter to our church. I was the secretary, and I opened it, and he asked for a Bible and some pens. And so we packaged that up along with some other requests, and him and I became pen pals and then phone pals. And that was over 20 years ago. Wow. And so we have been in touch with this young man and his family, and helped him go to school, go to an English-speaking school, and did some things. And have tried to get a visa for him to come and see us a couple of times. And Ghana does not let their young men leave the country, because if they go to a Western world, they get lost in that world, they don't come back. And so we've tried to get him, and finally we decided if I was ever going to meet this young man, that I had to go. And so I think last spring I told you I was planning to go, and I did. The last week of September I was there, and I sent Jody a few shots from my trip, and I'm not sure exactly what order they're going to come up in. And so I have to glance over my shoulder, if you forgive me for looking back to see what it is. So my trip to Africa was, going was 24, 25 hours, and coming back was 27. And, yes. And so that was, I'm not a world traveler, and so there was lots of new experiences with that. But I arrived in Africa. The flight across the ocean was about 11 hours. And so I arrived in Africa early in the morning, and I told my friend Richard that what time I would be coming. And I got to the airport in Accra, the capital of Ghana, and they were not there. And so that turn around, that doesn't work. The young man who is in the green shirt, second from the end, is my son. We didn't know what to call him in preparing papers to go. We finally decided to call him our godson. And so we call him our godson. That's Richard. He's the young man that sent me that letter 20 years ago. And you see what a nice strapping young man he is now. And so here I am at the airport with them not there, and many, many taxi drivers there asking me, do you need a ride? You need a ride? You need a ride? And I kept saying, no, they're coming, and pretty soon, here they come, this huge entourage of people, and this is my family from Ghana. On the end of, oh, she's changed. On the end, far end is the niece. She's only 19. That's Princess. Then Richard. Then his mother. And I always thought of her as being an elderly lady. She's actually 4 years younger than I am, but I still think of her as kind of, she's had a very hard life, and so I think of her as older. Richard's sister is Ruth is next. And me, and then on the end is Emmy, and Richard's brother Ebenezer, who we also have helped some through school, is taking the picture. He's only 25. And so there's my family, and there's Richard and I at the airport, and you can, and then there's Ebenezer that you didn't see. Now, these young men are, have gone through a school, and they both speak good English. Princess also, with some help of my sisters and some other people, we haven't done this all alone, has gone to an English-speaking school. So those three speak English, the mom, the sister do not. And so there's lots of, translating, going back and forth. Richard owns a beverage store, and he has a warehouse kind of a business, and he has customers that come and get their beverages. The brother owns a store that has all kinds of things to do with cell phones. So quite modern in this big city. So there's Princess. She needs to go to school. Hopefully she's our last project. And so she needs to get an education. She'd like to be a nurse. And so we have a couple of years of still helping her to get her way. So as we're going down the streets, they pick me up in a rented car, and we're going down the streets, and this is what I see. This is a pretty typical street. It's at a time when there are not businesses set up. If it was during the day, there would be all kinds of vendors set up along there, and it's like a big Myers. You could buy anything you want there, but they're all in these little separate places, and so you walk along and pick out the things you need. That's a typical. There's our car, and sometimes all of us got into that Toyota Camry to go places. But I always had the front seat with the air on. That was my privilege, and so that's how we traveled. So you saw the picture of those streets that we went down, and so I'm wondering about where am I going to stay? What is this place going to look like where I'm staying? And I knew he had moved into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment just before I got there because he knew that we would need that. And so I'm wondering, if we go down all these streets and go into a drive, and there's a gate, and he beeped the horn and the gate opened, and there's this complex there. It's all tile, everything is tiled. It's very glamorous, and it was a very nice place. In the middle of all of that, what looks like the slums are these little newer places, and so it was very nice. And that was my bedroom. He bought that bed just for me. It's a king-size bed, and I was supposed to have that room to myself. It has a bathroom, and his mom, sister, and niece were going to sleep on a mattress in the other bedroom, and I said, oh, no, 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 no. And so I said, your mom will sleep with me. And I picked the wrong one. She snored like a train. Terrible. This is how we like to spend our evenings. There's the mattress, and we would go in and lay on that mattress and visit and giggle like a bunch of young girls. We had some of our best times there. Like I said, the mom and the sister didn't speak much English, but the mom went to a Methodist church, and I was singing a song one day in the car, and she said, John Wesley. I said, yes, she knows all the John Wesley hymns. And so we sang and had a great time of fellowship. They taught me a song, but that's how we enjoyed our time there. They loved also to dress me, as you see, in their clothes, and she would put a headdress on me, and I would prance around for them, and they just were so tickled with that. There she is. That's how, when they're home, that's how they're dressed, like she is, with just a serape, I think she called that, around her. Their food was always the same every day, a little piece of meat. I'm not sure if that's a thigh or a little piece of beef, but it has rice and yam. Their yam is a white yam, looks more like a potato. And so I thought, well, that was good until they put that sauce on it. And I told them, I said, I don't like things very spicy. They said, oh, we don't use spices. I took one bite of it. They don't know that cayenne pepper is a spice. So you can. This is how some of what I ate then. As we would stop along the road, there would be a man with a pile of coconuts, and he would chop, 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 and open a coconut. And Richard there has pulled the meat out of that, and we shared that. We ate in the car like that quite a bit. This is what my plate looked like. Yes, some rice, some yam, and the other is plantain. Lots of plantain there, and we stopped along the street quite often. And you go ahead, Jody. And one of the big adventures that I had, we went to a national park there, and they had over the rainforest these rope bridges about 400 feet above ground, and you could walk. There were 7 of them, and so the 2 younger ones, Princess Ebenezer and I, went up to do that. We had to climb the mountain first to get up that high, a steep hill, and then Princess got scared and she went back. We walked the ropes. It started to rain. We had a great time, and so that was a good adventure. I also love the marketplace. I have a friend who was in Ghana for 2 years, and her advice to me was, don't eat the food that the vendors make out on the street. That's probably not a good idea. So the first thing we do when we go to the market, there's a vendor, and we're eating yam and plantain and garnos, and I never got sick. God was so good and blessed me so much. So, yeah, this apartment up there, I took that picture because that's where Richard lived with his brother when he was quite young, when I was first starting to support him and he went to school. So that was the kind of living conditions that he lived in most of his life, sometimes worse. The traffic there is terrible. There are no traffic rules, hardly any signs. Everybody just inches along until you find a spot to go in. Yes, some of you might like that. it's just better to close your eyes and pray and hope that you get there. But this is the marketplace on a busy day. This is his brother. He owns a jean market place there in the market. It's a long table. And he orders these tight stretch jeans from and gets them in crates from China. And they sell them for $1 a pair. Yes, $1 a pair. And so I thought that was that's quite amazing. There, his workers they're barking. They're saying 5 cetus, which is about equal to one of our dollars. And so they're selling all those jeans there. It's very interesting. I loved the marketplace. I loved to go back in the tunnels. I showed this picture to show you that not everything is, you know, like the slums. There's some very nice houses, and I found that Ghana was very much like that. So much of the old, decrepit, and yet the new is coming in certain places. And so it wasn't all bad. It wasn't long, and it was time for us to go home. We're back at the airport again with some sad goodbyes. His mom, a day never went by that she doesn't know much English, but she knows thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, sister, and hugged me every day and was so grateful for all that I had done. And so she wanted to show her appreciation. And so we went to a fabric store that her friend owns, and she picked out these materials. And this was the day before I left. And so we picked out these materials. We went to this little seamstress shop, a very young gal, who measured me all over, and the next day we went back and picked up this dress. And so it's nothing that I would ever pick out, but you know, this is what she wanted to give me, and I couldn't even get it over my hips. And so the young girl took it back, and an hour later I went back and got it, and she had fixed it to fit. It still has seams this wide, so I could grow some and I could still wear that dress, but it's very heavy. So this is the last thing I wanted to show you. This is a picture of then his mom is up in the far corner, his sister down here in the front, and then the two in the far back are two more of Ruth's children. And we're sitting on a full-size bed. We went to visit them in another city. They don't live in Accra. It took us 5 hours to get there, but we're in this room that is maybe 15 by 15 feet. And we're sitting on the bed. There's a small refrigerator in the corner, lots of totes in the other corner. Everything they own is in that totes. 4 of them live in that room. 4 of them. And they don't have their own bathroom. They share their bathroom with several other rooms with people living similar to that. So after I saw that, I wasn't very happy about that. And so they are moving into a 2-bedroom apartment in the same town with Richard and his brother and Princess, and so they're doing that in the next couple of weeks, and I'm just so thankful. You might wonder about Clarence, and when I got home, there was Clarence waiting for me. He did very well. God watched over him, and he sent this beautiful young lady from a healthcare agency that came every other day to check on him, make sure he was all right, and she took him for a walk down the trail near our house, and they had a great time. God watched over him and was so gracious. It could have been very hot. The temperature for that week I was there was very temperate. And so God was good in just so many ways. But that's my trip to Ghana, and hope to go back again. Kate?
Yes, I was wondering, do they have any facilities for church at all? Or?
Oh, you know, it's so interesting. You mentioned about that. We are part of this, you know, conglomerate. And they have every kind of denomination of church that you can imagine. You know, like she said, John Wesley, she goes to a Methodist church, there's Baptist churches, there's every kind of Presbyterian church. Richard went to a Catholic school, but all of the churches have the same flavor. They're almost all Pentecostal. But they were started by missionaries that were sent out. And so, yeah, that was kind of rung a bell. That's so awesome that we're part of that. It's a very Christian nation. Very little of any other religion other than Christian, and so I was surprised and very pleased to see that.
Their clothes look so clean.
They are very clean people, and none of them have hot water heaters, so they take showers a lot, but they're all cold.
Oh.